The Cam Baker Show.
If Rod
Good evening. Yes, I'm here. Good evening.
Okay. I'd just like to say that I discovered Rod just recently, and Rod is a really great hypnotist. He's actually self-taught, but the thing that I've noticed is that Rod is actually, he's bringing a huge amount of laughter to his audiences. And one of the things I have to say about the hypnotists that I've seen myself, especially the Las Vegas hypnotists, is that it's a bit dry and it's a bit kind of surgical and medical in the way that they go about doing their stage shows. And Rod's show is very fluid, and he involves the audience, and it's hilariously funny as well. And Rod has been featured on this clip featuring a DJ called Chris Sloth. And
Charlie Sloth.
Charlie Sloth, yeah.
Charlie Sloth.
And one of the most amazing things is that Rod has the ability to bring somebody under his, influence. How long would you? What's the shortest time you've taken to actually induce someone?
The best I've ever done is 2 seconds. That's the best ever.
2 seconds.
2 seconds.
And you can actually see in some of the TV shows and the videos that Rod's got online, you can actually see that these people are fully under Rod's control within seconds.
This is amazing.
When I first started out in 1995, it used to take me 30 seconds, but year by year I whittled the seconds down just by saying a different word or a different movement. People actually thought, and still do think, I pinch people's necks and nerves to actually disabilitate them and drop them to the floor, but it's not. It's just all it is my words getting into their mind. And like I said, I average now, if I take more than 5 seconds, to me, I've failed.
Now, Rod, I used to be in the military, and it was one of our favourite nights on the camera when they would bring in a hypnotist, They would mix it with comedy. Yeah. And on one occasion, it actually went a bit too far because they had a couple of guys almost getting sexual with one another. Now, it was always said to us that some people are more susceptible to hypnotism than others.
Yeah,
and I have to ask you, what makes a person susceptible to having their brain hacked?
Well, what we're saying on stage is only 1 in 5 out of the volunteers are susceptible. That's just the way of law of averages with the human race. But if you're not going to be on stage, 99.9% of people can be hypnotized to a certain extent. The people I like are the most open-minded, like artists, musicians, the military, of course, graphic designers, people who use their imagination in their job and their life. They're very, very open-minded. But the people that are a nightmare to me, no disrespect to these people, but people who've, I know it hurts to say so, people have been abused in their lives or have been bullied, etc. They tend to go into their shell and they don't open up. So the people I like to hypnotize are the one, like I said, the graphic designers and the people that are very, very open-minded, who are open to new ideas.
And I was asking you during the break, and I think it's probably an important distinguish between the two, but I was asking you the difference between a stage magician and a hypnotist. Could you speak to that, Rod?
Yes, absolutely, way, way, way worlds apart. A magician is somebody who uses illusions to trick you. You always know it's a trick. It's like, look at what I can do. Isn't that amazing? I've tricked you, like a con man. They use cards and sometimes special envelopes to put words in. They think they read your mind. But with a hypnotist, all it is pure truth and mind control. That's why I do a lot of street hypnosis, just to prove to absolute total strangers in the street I've never met, I hypnotize them in 5 seconds. There's no trickery, there's no deception. It is just pure hypnosis and mind control in those few seconds.
Wow. And I have to say, Rod, before I stumbled on your work, I had actually seen what's known as the hypnotic induction being performed.
Yeah.
I'd seen a hypnotist several years ago on the island of Ibiza.
Right.
And I deliberately got to the show early so that I could actually see the induction. What he did is he did a kind of primary induction that was not part of the show with a group of people beforehand, and I've actually seen that before. What's amazing about you is that you are literally doing what took him maybe 20 minutes. You're doing it in a matter of seconds.
Yes, exactly.
And he was very good, by the way. He was very good, but he was...
I probably know him, actually.
Oh, really? That's
Yeah.
good. I suppose that the hypnotist world is a small world, is it?
Yeah, the professionals do tend to stick together, and we talk about what's going on in the circle.
Yeah.
But the trouble is, there's so many wannabes now who watch a show, think, yes, I can do that, and they really have brought the profession down.
Yes.
But the thing with my induction, because like I said, I'm completely self-taught. Nobody's shown me how to do induction. I've taught myself.
Yeah.
Is my induction is done before the audience. There's
that's right.
No hiding behind curtains. It's like volunteers make your way to the stage, and I actually hypnotize them in front of the audience. But what I do say, specifically, every show, do not video or record the induction, because it is true, if they record the induction, they can go home, watch it, or listen to it, and they can actually be hypnotized by my voice without me even being there. So so I'd say do not video or record it in any way whatsoever.
Yeah, absolutely. And I did ask you this off air before we started today's broadcast. I just want to ask you again for the benefit of the listeners. If somebody has been hypnotized, does the effect wear off? And if it does wear off, how long does it last?
Basically, if it's for hypnotherapy, it will last, if you wanted to, it will last a lifetime, like non-smoking, giving up alcohol, weight loss, etc. That's completely different because you want it to work.
Yeah.
But basically, in my show, it's a bit of a tongue-in-cheek joke, but I hypnotize them not to remember anything they've done in the show. And
I see.
There we go now. What I do is I actually put lipstick on the blokes, because I work a lot in Corfu in Greece. I actually put lipstick on them, but I make the lipstick invisible for the next 2 hours. So they go off into town to basically go on the pool and have a few drinks. And they're out in town with this bright red lipstick, but it's all over their faces, not on their lips. And even if they go into the toilet to look in the mirror, the lipstick's invisible, and they're still trying to be on the pool covered in lipstick for 2 hours.
It's absolutely amazing, isn't it? I think actually invisibility is one of the most amazing aspects to hypnotism that I've ever seen.
Well, Chris, I have to add, this is the one thing that startled me as well, because one of the famous tricks is having somebody stand in front of the participant and then another person stand behind them. They have maybe a clock in their hand or some object, and they ask the person sitting down, what is the other person holding? Now, by rights, there's a person in the way. You shouldn't be able to see that. But for them, they don't manifest that person anymore. They've been told not to, basically they're not there. Now, how the heck does that work?
Basically, it's your mind telling you that they do not exist. And that's exactly what happens. You do not see, whatever the hypnotist, so I tell that person's mind to imagine or see, their mind will not see that person. It wipes it out completely. It just takes it as read that that's the truth. It's like, let me explain what hypnosis is like. Imagine you've got your imagination and a guard dog, right? So if I say to you, look at the telly, that telly is a rabbit, and you'll go, Rod, come on, you're talking stupid now. So what I do is I hypnotize your guard dog asleep, right? So it's now going straight into your imagination. There's no argument in the way, so it accepts. When I say the telly looks like a rabbit, your imagination sees, well, there's no argument, it must be the truth. So it sees in its memory bank a rabbit, and it sees the telly as a rabbit. So that's how you see it.
Wow.
And this is a question I've always wanted to ask a hypnotist. Can you, you get certain people that have a natural talent for, say, I don't know, playing the piano. Like they'll hear a tune. They might not even read music, but they consider a piano. Within about 3 or 4 minutes, they've worked out the main melody of a tune just because they've got a musical ear. Can a hypnotist induce that kind of natural aptitude in a person that doesn't have it?
Yes, because in actual fact, I can't remember, I've got a horrific memory, but it was somebody like Bach or somebody like that who actually used hypnosis to help them perform music.
Oh, wow. You know what? I'd always been suspicious about it. I always thought there was something about Mozart.
Wow.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, I knew it was one of the famous ones. They actually used to hypnotize themselves. I used to work in a halfway house looking after children who had drug problems, etc. And one of the girls there was a musician. And I hypnotized her with her permission and said, when you wake up in 30 seconds' time, you're going to go to your room and compose the best piece of music you've ever done. And gone. She was straight away up to her room, and she did amazing work.
Is that right? Wow.
Yeah, I even hypnotized the London School of Dance. They rang me up, got me out the Yellow Pages book, and to make the dance performances more imaginative and more interesting.
Oh,
wow.
Let's hold that thought there. There is the music. What did I tell you, Joe? This was going to be a Christmas
Fascinating.
track. Don't go anywhere, folks, because I have so many questions for Rod on the other side. Talk about freaky. We haven't even started yet. Stay tuned, folks. Coming up after this, the Geos. Don't go anywhere.
This is the Truth Frequency Radio Network. We are TFR. Truth Frequency
Welcome back, everyone, to hour number 2, right here on your Christmas Freaky Friday, with me, one of your hosts, Kev Baker, and tonight, the Woo Crew. We've got Joe Joseph and Johnny Whistles. 2 very special guests. We've got a man from the network here himself, Mr. Christopher Everard. You can find his work over at enigmatv.com. And we are joined by hypnotist Rod Scarf. Now, we were getting into it before the break, and all of us are so full of questions for Rod. It's unbelievable. But Rod, you were explaining how you were self-taught. Now, please talk to us about how you go about teaching yourself these magical powers.
Yes, please do.
Well, basically, not even though people say not everybody can be a hypnotist, I'm just a very unusual person. If you ever get to meet me, you'll see why.
You'll fit in very well here.
Yeah, I'm a bit freaky. Basically, I've always been a people watcher. I'm the person that will sit at the end of the bar and just study human behavior. Even at 15 years of age, I bought a book called Man Watching, just because I liked to study human behavior. I took up yoga, meditation, etc. at 17. Nothing really happened because I was a plumber for 20 years, which has nothing to do with hypnotism. And then father died. Basically, I was left penniless. And I'll tell you how I started to be a hypnotist. One night I went to see a hypnotist in a pub, and he hypnotized this bloke to come up thinking he was an Alsatian dog and actually bit me on the leg. And I thought, wow, I want to do that. But it cost thousands of pounds to learn how to be a hypnotist. And I thought, well, I haven't got thousands of pounds. I've got £5 in my pocket, and I still want to be a hypnotist. So I went to the library, and I literally read the library dry on Jung, Freud, psychology, meditation, hypnosis, anything to do with the mind.
Well, you know, Rod, I probably suggest to you went about it the right way, because I imagine there's a lot of snake oil salesmen out there, a lot of shysters who claim to be able to teach these powers, but really can't.
Yes, there still is, but I'm not mentioning any names. Basically, I read the library dry, and when I'd done that, I felt so confident. I'm a confident person anyway, but I felt so confident. After I'd done that, a month later, I went to my local pub and said, look, I'm a hypnotist. I haven't done a show yet. I'll do it to you for free. All you do is pass the hat round the end of the night, and if success, I'll make a few bob. They went, okay. So I went on. I had a Radio Shack microphone, a cassette recorder, which I had to walk up to and push play and stop for my music. Did an hour show, was an absolute success. They passed the hat round. I got £25 and absolutely loved it. From then, I've never looked back.
Absolutely fantastic. Now, I was looking at the chat room before the break, and I was starting to think, in line with what we've been talking about previously in the show, you'd be the best man to ask here, because we were talking about Hollywood, mind control. And as a hypnotist, when you watch the likes of the mainstream news or Hollywood blockbusters, do you see techniques that you recognise? Are they trying to almost hypnotise us?
Now then, I've got a few notes down here in front of me, so I was actually going to share with your
You see, I'm synced in with you, Rod. I'm locked in, man.
with your listeners, actually. It's about politics, in actual fact. Now then, if you ever ask a politician a question, do they ever say yes or no? Have you ever heard, if you ask a politician about the fiscal policy, would they ever go yes or no? They never do it, do they?
Absolutely not. They're incapable of one-word answers like that.
The reason is, right, now I'm going to give it this way to your listeners. This is called the confusional technique, right? They're going to all be listening very, very carefully now. So if you ask a politician, what's the fiscal policy these days, and what's the answer? He'll go, waffle, 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 bring in big words you've never heard of. Your mind goes like absolute mush and pulp, listening, going, yes, yes, I don't know what he's saying. And he confuses you so much, and right at the end he'll go, we need to raise taxes. And you go, oh, that's the answer.
Oh, that's amazing, because even in the military, we had a phrase called bullshit baffles brains.
Yeah.
See, when people waffle on Joe, and then at the end of it, you don't know what they said, but you've agreed anyway.
Yeah, it's a classic psyop technique. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and that's how politicians do it. Also, if you notice, every politician uses their hands. They wave their hands around in front of you. Notice that next time you watch them on telly. They never stand there dead still. They always wave their hands around very, very dramatically, waving their hands in the air whilst they do all this confusional technique on you. Just notice that next time. And it's all part of the confusional technique to make you totally baffled and then go, we need to raise taxes. And your mind goes, like you said, that's the answer, the bullshit one.
So is that part of something they call neuro-linguistic programming, Rob?
No, that's completely different. NLP is about a way of life to make your life better, etc. It's invented by somebody called Richard Bandler, who I read a lot about. Hypnosis has a very, very small amount of NLP in it, but only about 10%, which I've looked into it, and it wasn't really for me. But some people are heavily into it. NLP uses a lot of words, confuses you, and then gives you the answer. But with hypnosis, you don't want to use confusion. You just want to relax them to get into their mind. Other ways of hypnotizing is the shock technique, which I absolutely hate. I'm giving all the secrets away now. If you look on YouTube, you'll see some people, I can hypnotize in 1 or 2 or 3 seconds, and they use a shock technique. The thing is, what they do is they walk up to you, you hold your hand out, and automatically you hold your hand out as well, and they'll bang, push or pull it really hard and shock you, and they'll hit your head down into hypnosis. The thing, I hate that, because first of all, it's a total stranger. You don't know if they've got any injuries to their spine, their legs, their arm, or anything. You're a total stranger you're doing this to, and I do not agree with it in any way at all. Totally about that. What else have we got here? Also, you ever listen to adverts? Obviously, this is an obvious one, isn't it, about adverts?
The power of advertising is unbelievable.
If I go, what do you think of straight away? It's McDonald's. After every advert, they do that little whistle at the end. And if you ever hear that in the street or something like it, you'll think, oh, McDonald's, burger, bang. You think, maybe yes, go and have a McDonald's then. Again, it's subliminal anchoring, which makes you want to go and buy their product. Every advert does it somehow, even if they do a little jingle or a little sign. That's called anchoring, and that's how adverts do it.
Wow, and I'll bring Chris back in here, because Chris, you've been working on a new series that incorporates all of this.
Yeah.
Talk to us about that a little bit.
Well, I first came across the symbolism in The Lion King, which is a Disney film. That film is notorious because if you watch it frame by frame, especially if you've got a DVD player that has what they call Zoom, DVD Zoom, you can see that there's virtually not a single scene in The Lion King that doesn't have a subliminal sexual kind of aspect to it.
And Disney are absolutely famous for this. All of their movies are replete with it, Chris.
Yeah, a huge number of them. The most common thing that you see are a character in a scene that is not playing a kind of primary role in the scene. It's a supporting character, and they might be, say, looking like they're leaning against something, and you'll see that one of their hands, or sometimes both of their hands, have taken on the horned hand sign. This is very common. And then if you analyze the shape of their shadow is usually some kind of phallus. So that's the most common kind of phenomenon.
So
that
what
you
are they
see.
trying to do here, though, Chris? What's the idea here? Are they trying to sexualize the children?
I mean, I've been asking myself that question for a long time. I mean, the poster for The Lion King is probably the most famous subliminal sexual image that you could ever imagine, because it shows a woman with her back to you with a shapely bum in a bikini, and her bum is the nose of the lion. And also we see sex being spelled out in these Disney films. Usually it's done with grains of sand, if it's in the sand dunes, or it's a puff of dust or snowflakes. And just for a few frames, sex is spelt.
And even the Magic Castle itself, it's got the phallic symbol incorporated into it.
Yeah, well, that is the most famous example of that is actually on the DVD cover. Now, I do get mixed up between Snow White and Cinderella. It's one of those. It's actually on the DVD cover, and it looks like a gold-plated dildo. But I have to say that, before people kind of think, Disney, it's so terrible to do that. This is part of a very long history of phallic sexual imagery that's been encoded into popular works of public art for a long, long time. Now, I'm sure, Joe and yourself, you've seen the old engravings, the color engravings of President George Washington dressed as a Freemason.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
And he's in a Masonic lodge. Now, if you look at that very carefully, you can see phalluses everywhere in that engraving. This has been going on for a very long time. Now, coming back to Rod's field of expertise, I've got some questions, Rod. Basically, my research, when I started making my documentaries about secret societies, I came to the conclusion that hypnotism was very much part of the induction ceremony for all of the new members of certain secret societies. The person that's being inducted has to go through several different stages. One trouser leg is rolled up. The left breast is exposed. They're blindfolded for a major part of the ceremony. Objects are pressed into their flesh. They're given certain drinks, which are mystery drinks. Could be blood, could be red wine, could be a mixture of wine and blood, could be, all kinds of things. And obviously, when you're tasting things and you're blindfolded, you have to put all of your trust into the worshipful masters, and the high priest and the high priestess depends on, what kind of secret society or cult or coven you're being inducted into. But I know a lot of the Masonic rituals. I know a lot of them off by heart. And now that I've been researching hypnotism, I do see that those rituals have been written in such a way that there is a huge amount of repetition of certain words. And I want to ask you, Rod, if you think that, that is repetition also used in hypnotic induction?
Indeed it is. What you've just explained there is a classic giving over of full trust and your life to the people. So basically you are letting them take control.
Yeah.
And you believe everything they say, and the more they say it, the more you accept it, and it goes into your mind as the truth once again. So yes, hypnotism is definitely used in that initiation, and you are going to believe and trust the people that are initiating you, and you accept the ways in which their brotherhood go about their things, basically.
Yeah. Well, I tell you now, Rod, I'd suspected as much, but, I hadn't spoken to an experienced hypnotist until I met you about that particular subject. Obviously, what happens is that at one point, the blindfold is taken off. And the symbolism of this is, here we have a profane idiot from society, and he's come to join our glorious secret society, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And he was living in darkness, and now we take off the blindfold, and here he is now illuminated with the light of the brotherhood.
Yes, it's a classic. Here is the answer to everything.
Yeah.
With the blindfold off. Yes, it's like you can't see. You are basically, you've got one sense taken away from you, and it's because you have to concentrate, like you do in hypnosis. You have to concentrate on one thing because you can't see. You have to concentrate on the feelings and the sounds around you because the other sense is taken away. So that goes into your mind, and then when that's all done, the blindfold's taken off, and it's a shock to the system, and you see everybody around you, and you can see that these are your answer and the people that you trust, the ones that have been initiating you also.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you now, a good friend of mine is Lionel Fanthorpe, who presents the 14 TV series on TV. And Lionel is an ordained minister, but he's also a Knights Templar. And I remember Lionel actually saying to me when we first met that when he went through his ordination, it actually did something to his brain. And, I always remembered him saying that, but I couldn't really, it's only now that I'm putting more meat on the bones. And I realize now that these induction rituals, which are very rigid, they're very, you can't deviate. There's actually kind of Masonic policemen. They're called tilers, and they deliberately follow and make sure that the ritual is word for word as it's written in the rule book.
Yeah, gotcha.
And now I realize why. Is because really these are semi-hypnotic or overt hypnotic processes. And, it's...
when I first started hypnosis, you could ask me, I do not remember what book it was, but I remember at the end, it's at the beginning or the end of the book, it says, now you've learned hypnotism, be careful with the power you have. Do not become thinking you are a god or set up your own cult, which is what you could do so easily. Because with hypnotism, you can hypnotize them into your ways. And that's how these cults work. It's so easy to brainwash somebody using hypnosis if you want to. And exactly, it does that with the Freemasons, the Masons, etc. It's just hypnosis. It's another sort of a cult, in a way, isn't it, really?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Now, I've got a question about that. What about these cults that use video? Like, do you remember the cult called Heaven's Gate that all committed suicide?
Yes.
And they had a leader. They used to dress up in these kind of spandex T-shirts, and they had a symbol that looked like the symbol from Star Trek. And what he did is a lot of the members didn't actually ever meet him in person. He used to actually just send VHS cassettes around to the members. Do you? I mean, what is your opinion, Rod? Can the hypnotic induction be just as powerful if you're sitting in front of a TV and you're watching it off a video?
If basically yes, because if you go through a natural, they have to be hypnotized in some way or brainwashed in some way to start with.
Yeah.
But if you sit down in front of a television, all of your concentration is put in front of you. You're like a blinkered horse, and all you do is listen to the voice, see what's in front of you, and you can be hypnotized. Like I said, that's why I don't let people video my induction. It's exactly the same thing. You can be hypnotized.
Yeah.
For from the telly to be for the cult.
Yeah.
Easily.
Yeah. And the next question I've got, Rod, is, after you've given somebody, after you've hypnotized them and you've given them, say, for example, a set of triggers. So, say, for example, if they see a certain hand sign or they hear a certain sound, they will do a certain thing or say something.
Yeah, I do that loads of times.
Yeah. If once you've if you like programmed that into the person, does it always work where you then to finish the hypnotized session with them, you tell them that they won't ever remember being hypnotized?
Well, in my shows, obviously not, because what I do is I do make them do stupid things after the show. I finish the show completely. Good night, ladies and gentlemen. End of the show. I walk off, but I've given them triggers, that things they'll do. But I always give them a time limit. The classic is the lipstick on their faces for 2 hours or something. Like that. You always must give them a time limit, because what happens then is they get confused, they get headaches.
Really?
Wow. So there's physical consequences to it as well.
Yes.
This is quite interesting because we hear about Manchurian candidates and things like that. And my next question was going to be, well, why do they have to bother with things like MK Ultra? If they can just hypnotize somebody this easily and have them ready to trigger at any point, then why not just do it that way?
Yeah, but MK Ultra is hypnotism.
Kathy
O'Brien and Bryce Taylor, all of these people
It's more trauma-based, though. I mean, Rod doesn't actually traumatize people to get them into a state.
But the thing that I've realized, and this is in my Mind Hackers documentaries, is that people that have undergone a hypnotic induction and have been programmed with triggers, who are then hypnotized to say, "This never happened to you. I was never here. I wasn't in this room telling you this," then get reseeded into society. They've been hypnotized to believe that they were never hypnotized. They've got those triggers embedded in their subconscious mind. And this is why the deprogramming of MK Ultra, people like Bryce Taylor is a great example. This is why it takes so many years for them to remember what they actually did when they were part of that Black Ops program.
I'm going to slip something in here, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Whilst I actually did this a show in Jamaica, and whilst I was there, somebody saw I was on holiday, but I thought I'd do a show anyway, and it was an amazing show. And whilst I was there, somebody from the Swiss Secret Service actually asked me to work for them.
I'm not surprised. Well, that's where Ian Fleming lived. He lived in Jamaica.
To do exactly that. And I said, I can do it, but, it's not really legal, etc., but... and he left it. He said, "Okay, thanks, Rod. But it's nice to know you can." And it was just like he sidled up to me like he was an agent, and said, "Rod, I'm from a very, very special partner services, if you know what I mean. Could you hypnotize people?"
Well, there you go.
Out of them?
You were almost a dude that stared at goats, Rod.
I've seen that film.
Yeah.
Also, Kev, talking to you now, because you were in the forces, I do believe.
I certainly was for my sins. Yeah.
In actual fact, many, many years ago, I hypnotized the London Grenadier Guards. The ones where the big fezzes and look.
Certainly do, yeah.
Yes, I was in Birdwalk Birdwalk Lane or Birdcage Walk rings a bell?
Yes.
Anyway, yes, I was asked to hypnotise them, and I went there, and I was escorted everywhere by live guns everywhere. It was a bit disconcerting, actually.
I can imagine it was a bit surreal.
It was unusual, and I went there and I hypnotised the platoon, and because I don't know what ranking, there's majors and whatever, but there was a person there who's like really, really, really high in the rankings, and I hypnotised his platoon to do anything I wanted, and he actually stared at me in absolute disbelief what I could do. Basically, I could have made them turn on each other and kill each other, basically, turn on the brothers in the
You
army.
see, this is why we ended up having the hypnotist kind of entertainment cancelled, Rod, because, like I said at the start, it went a bit far one night, and obviously there's a big anti-gay policy at the time in the army, and they made two soldiers kiss. Now, the commanding officer at the time, he absolutely went berserk, and this was why it was cancelled, because obviously even he was amazed at the power of this.
Yes, he was staring at me, just absolute disbelief what I could make his soldiers do. It was.
But can I just ask you, Rod? This is a very, very important piece of information that's coming through you. Who contacted you, and what was it that they asked you to hypnotise an entire platoon to do?
No, it was just purely, I had an agent at the time and just said, Rod, this people want to be hypnotised. I said, yeah, okay, so this is it's the army or whatever. I said, yeah, that's fine, because I used to do a lot of forces then.
And to back Rod up, every base I went to, Chris, we would always maybe once a month, every couple of months, have a hypnotist come in, but it was purely the kind of comedy stuff.
Yeah, like USO type of stuff.
Yeah, eat a banana, tastes like an onion.
Yeah.
Well, I can say...
I don't know if you know this, but also when I do shows in Corfu, not sure if you know this, Kev, but there's a clause in the serve armed forces that the officers, etc., are not actually allowed to talk to hypnotists. Did you know that? Because the reason being, they know hypnotists can hypnotize them to get all the information and passwords, etc., from them.
And that's why you are the perfect kind of person for the intelligence services to approach. It makes total sense, absolutely.
Yeah. Do you guys, have you guys
We're
ever...
almost on the break, Chris. I need to cut you off. Listen to this, guys. It's flying by as Rod hacked our minds. Stay tuned. We'll find out after the break. Brilliant stuff. Freaky Friday Christmas special. Halfway through, so we've got half to go.
We must unite what has been set asunder. We are TFR. Truth Frequency Radio.
Welcome back, everyone, to the second half of tonight's Freaky Friday. And no, Rod has not changed me into a chicken during the break. This is Kev Baker, one of your hosts tonight. I'm joined by Joe Joseph, although the last time I spoke to him, he sounded like Yoda. Are you there, Joe?
Here I am.
Oh, brilliant stuff, Joe. I mean, this is absolutely the icing on the cake for the year here at TFR on the Freaky Friday.
Icing on the cake. It's the whole damn cake, dude. This is it. I mean, this is the whole shebang. This is what Freaky Friday's all about. And what's good about this is, this is stuff that I think a lot of people are curious about. And it's not something that you normally get a subject matter expert to be able to answer questions in this fashion. So just an amazing night so far, and can't wait for more.
Absolutely. And Johnny Whistles, you're part of the Woo crew here as well. This is absolutely amazing, man.
This has been brilliant, Kev. It's been an absolutely fantastic show. I hadn't heard of Rod, but thank God he's been on tonight. This has been fantastic.
Now, everyone in the UK has heard of a certain Mr. Darren Brown. Now, Rod, I believe, does know Darren. And Rod, I have to ask you, before I go back to Chris, do you have a website that the listeners can visit? Because I'm getting messages on Facebook, I'm getting messages in the chat room.
Do you know, it's terrible. I've only just put it back on tonight, and it's a real pig to find. Because I'm very unusual. I don't know if I've been talking to Chris about this. I also am a photographer. Don't know if you know that. Oh, also, I don't know if he'll have me back on again. I'm also a medium as well, a spiritual medium.
Oh, don't get Kev started with that, Rod. Jeez, Louise, here we go. I mean, there's a bromance in I can feel it now.
Ah, yes, for 2016, I can see a lot of Rod Scarth on KBS.
I used to run a business called Aldebaran's Haunted Fright Nights. And I used to go around. I'm the medium, and it was not set up in any way. We even went to the most haunted places in England, especially Dursley in Gloucestershire.
It's very inappropriate right now, Kev, for you to be touching yourself in that way.
I know it is, but you know, Rod, you know what really put me off this whole scene? And I mean, you're a British guy, you'll get this. Yvette Fielding and the Most Haunted Crew. I was so into that, but there were so many shenanigans. So many false prophets, fake kind of mediums, and it turned a lot of people away from what is a very serious subject. Yes,
that's the thing. There's even videos on YouTube where you can actually see them. I'm being pulled.
She's throwing stones.
And the bloke, you can see the rope around his waist where he's being pulled back.
Yep.
The thing with when I did it, well, I'd love to do it again, but I'll tell you the reasons why I don't, is nothing was set up whatsoever. I'd have people, I used to have infrared cameras, I'd have walkie-talkies, keep everything in control, and I wasn't even in the same room as them, and this was Joe Public who I had, and they were being pushed, swaying around in the room, being touched by children, and it was amazing. But the reasons I stopped it is I did it just because I enjoy that sort of thing. I'm not in it for the money. I used to go to pubs and haunted venues and say, look, I'm the medium, here's my thing. Do you mind if we do a session in your venue? They go, no, that's fantastic. And then what happened was it got popular on telly, and they go, right, okay, we want £500 off you. We want to see your public liability insurance. We want to see your health and safety for the evening. It was just like,
health
really?
And safety, here we go.
Come on. I used to charge, say, £20-25 a person for the whole evening, and I used to entertain them. And the places now, they want more money than I make, and then the insurances. So that's why I stopped. That's the only reason, because I used to love doing it.
Oh, Rod, this is absolutely fascinating. But I must go back to Chris at this point, because Chris, during the break, you were speaking about a book, and this as well is absolutely fascinating. I'm sure the listeners want to hear more about this.
Yeah, it's called The Book of Double Mirrors, and it's it's about 28 pages long. It was originally typed on kind of tracing paper, which is what's used in the intelligence services, and it's typed all in capitals and double spacing. And I first found out about it when I made my first film, The Illuminati, in 2004. I started making that movie in the end of 2000, because it takes, good 3 years to make a really damn good documentary. And there's no author, there's no heading on these sheets of paper. It's a notorious document amongst the intelligence community, and it was a former SAS officer who gave me a copy of it. And it's one of those things that I've always returned back to research it. The copy I got was German with English handwriting in the gaps between the lines where somebody had translated it. And that handwriting from the scanned photocopies that I was given by a former SAS officer, the handwriting is meant to be John le Carre's handwriting, who is the author of Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. Now, the original text was meant to have been written in Swedish, and it was meant to have been written using a military cipher code from the Swedish language. That's how serious this information is. And it describes the creation of a person, a special agent called a double mirror. Now, a double agent is somebody that is passing information to two adversaries and is pretending to be friendly to both sides in, this intelligence war, which is typical of what you see in John le Carre's book. A double mirror is a hypnotized double agent who has been, what it says basically in the text is that you take an intelligence agent and you hypnotize them to carry inside their subconscious mind triggers, which are called delivery triggers in the text. They could be a hand gesture. They could be a word that's said down the telephone.
Polka dot dress.
Yep, polka dot dress. They could be anything. But then what happens at the end of that primary, that's called the primary mirror. What happens is that person is then hypnotized to never even realize that their subconscious mind has been turned into a container to deliver those triggers. And those delivery triggers are triggered by the what is known in the text as the operator, who is like George Smiley or one of these super spies. Now, what happens is that the primary mirror is going about their job, working, as an intelligence officer, traveling around, could be years and years down the line. They receive a trigger from the operator, manager, and they then deliver one of the triggers that's from their subconscious to another agent. And that agent is called the double mirror. And what the reason, basically the text goes like this, is that it's a buffering process that's built into the intelligence community so that the secondary person, the double mirror, if, say, for example, they're given, let's say, for example, Lee Harvey Oswald, a patsy, is given a trigger, like you see in the Manchurian Candidate movie. He's given an instruction to commit a crime, which is an assassination. He's being given that instruction by an agent who themselves is totally unaware that they'd actually been hypnotically programmed.
I mean,
and
Chris,
so
you think about the compartmentalization that you're talking about here.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is how they're able to pull off these false flags and things that we talk about all the time.
I think so.
Exactly,
I think so.
Chris.
Yeah, and so I wanted to ask Rod about this process. What do you think, Rod? I mean, it seems to me that when you watch Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, there, that whole George Smiley situation, it just seems that there's some extra kind of phenomenon that all those characters seem to be worried about that isn't actually overtly mentioned in the script. It's like they're all terrified of each other. Because a double mirror is an agent who, is a complete wild card and doesn't even realize that they're holding that information themselves.
Well, I've got to hold my hands up here. I haven't really got that much knowledge on what you're discussing.
But it is possible, though, is it, Rod, that you can hypnotize somebody who would then be a delivery boy to deliver a trigger?
Oh, yes, easy, yes.
So that you would be 2 stages removed from the end person who's influenced.
Yes, what you know about the MK Ultra is basically if you give somebody information and give them what's called, I don't know if what people realize what a trigger is. Should I explain what a trigger is?
Yeah, go on.
Well, basically, it's I could talk hours on triggers with anchors, pacing and leading, etc. Basically, a trigger is when somebody gives you a command, and a trigger is the end result. You say, if I hypnotize you, when I touch you on the shoulder, you'll say banana, because you've mentioned banana earlier on here. That is the end product. That is the trigger of touching the shoulder. So basically, if you hypnotize somebody and keep giving them an anchor, right? So let's say the answer to the nuclear warhead is the secret word is alchemy, right? And that's deep in your subconscious. You'll not even remember being told that. But if I give you an anchor of just touching on the nose or the shoulder, say once a day for a year's time, every time that's done, that goes deeper as an anchor. Every time it's done, or if I touch you on the shoulder gently, that's again as an anchor.
Yeah.
So every time that's done, it goes deeper in your subconscious. But the trigger is if I slap you on the back, oh, hello mate, how you doing? That's the trigger, and you'll go, Rod, the answer is alchemy, and it's straight in, done. So it's anchors and triggers. The anchor is what keeps the secrets in all the time and makes it go deeper into your subconscious, and the trigger is you giving the answer of whatever the secret is.
I mean, that anchor, by the sounds of it, Chris, is just something that reinforces this idea.
Yes.
And it might sound totally bizarre, but I mean, you could be sitting in your home, you could be picking up the telephone, series of tones, and that might well be the thing that's reinforcing this in you. Yeah,
absolutely. Because, the reason I brought up the Book of Double Mirrors is because, I think this is really going on, in the intelligence community. And it seems in the text, I mean, it's the English translation is all scribble. It's very difficult to read some of it, but it seems to be implying that some of the agents are even hypnotized so that when they do a drop of a document to another agent, they're hypnotized to even believe that they're dropping it to a completely different person.
Yes.
And this is kind of coming across in that Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy things. Like, if you know about the Book of Double Mirrors and you watch that movie, you think, aha, none of these guys are really sure what is actually going on.
Yeah, gotcha.
Isn't that the best way, though, Chris, to run this overwhelming conspiracy that's going on right now?
If you're the boss of, MI6 or the SAS or MI5, you must think that hypnotism is the best thing since sliced bread. But if you're a member of the public and you're at the thin end of the wedge and, you've got one of these double mirrors who are basically being sent to assassinate you and they don't even realize that that's what's happening to themselves, it's very dangerous stuff.
I mean, I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but there's something called subversive hypnotism.
Oh, tell us more on this.
In actual fact, because I concentrate so much on my show stuff and entertaining, subversive hypnotism is it's subversive, it's not very nice. But I used to practice some of it, and you'd be amazed how you could control people just with a touch. Let me give you an idea. What I used to do, I'm not going to tell you how it's done, but if you want to research it, you carry on. But basically what I used to do is I say to somebody, watch, I'm going to make that person touch their nose all the time. And I'd say a certain phrase to them, casually, I'm not going to say what it was, but I'd say, blah, 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 it's nice weather today, blah, 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 blah. And the person at the end of, when I stopped, would scratch their nose all the time.
Oh,
and
holy cow.
That is called subversive hypnotism, and it is so easy. I'm not going to tell you how it's done because I don't want other listeners practicing it, but you not believe how easy as a hypnotist it is making somebody to do that.
The listeners need to really think about this because, this is just a throwaway kind of conversation that Rod has with somebody, and he has the ability to actually affect the outcome of what happens at the end of that.
Yeah.
This is, it's not to say anything bad to you, Rod, but it's actually quite scary.
Yes, that's the thing is, when it amazes, as a hypnotist myself, it amazes me how much power I have to make somebody to do that. But you've got to reel that power in, and like I said in the book, not think of yourself as God. You've got to think, right, I'm a hypnotist, I'm here to entertain, that's it. Not if people want to go down the subversive route, whether they work for the military or whatever, or to get secrets out, that's how it's done. It's done so easily to get passwords, to get information so easily.
And this subversive route, Chris, we've got things now called technology like voice to skull. This is basically microwave technology that can put voices or tones in your mind And you tie all this in with what Rod's talking about, and Brave New World looks like child's play.
Yeah, well, one of the reasons why I asked the question whether Rod could hypnotize somebody to, say, for example, play an instrument or compose music is because I studied music, and I thought, well, does the subconscious mind hear frequencies, or can it hear frequencies which the overt front mind cannot hear? And if that is the case, if you could hypnotize somebody to be sensitive to, say, for example, sub-audio bass frequencies or super harmonic frequencies, you could have an entire broadcast network broadcasting super harmonic frequencies above 22 kilohertz, which is where the human ear, under its normal control of the frontal brain, stops listening. But, you could have a situation like you see in that movie. What's it called? They Live, where you've got you've got ordinary television shows. You're sitting there and you're watching your favorite comedy show, but above or below the audio frequencies, there is another show which has been designed and broadcast just for your subconscious mind.
Now then, I'm going to butt in there. That is part of how I use my subversive hypnotism.
I see.
You see, so you are onto something there.
Yeah, I tell you what, Rod, I've been suspicious of that for a long, long time because, I have an edit studio. I've been running a recording studio for many years. I understand frequencies. A lot of people can't hear anything below maybe 60 hertz. But if the subconscious mind can hear it,
it doesn't even have to be a different frequency to be able to use the subversive. You would not, I'm not going to say how it's done, but you would not believe how easy it is when I do it. But you wouldn't notice I'm doing it to you. The person next to you wouldn't notice I'm doing it to you, but your subconscious hears it and acts on it. Whatever I tell it to do, if I string a sentence together, you'll go and do whatever I've just given you a subversive comment to do, and you'll do it.
Wow.
You don't know why you're doing it, but you'll just go off and do it.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned the little musical jingle that's used on the end of McDonald's adverts.
Yes.
Lots of corporations, when they advertise, they're called jingles.
Yeah.
They pay a lot of money, actually, to have these jingles made.
Yeah. And that's the anchor. And then
that's the anchor, I see.
Anchor, every time they hear it, that's the anchor. It goes in. And the trigger is if they hear it again, somewhere else, or a little bit of a tune, somebody might be whistling and they hear part of that tune, that's the trigger. They'll think, McDonald's, burger, I'm rather hungry. Bang, they're in and they're getting it.
Wow. Now, the next question I want to ask you, and it is related to this, the double mirror intelligence document. I've seen a couple of clips of hypnotists where I think I saw a clip from you as well. They say to a hypnotized person, the hypnotist says to a hypnotized person, when you open your eyes, I will be, somebody else, like a Hollywood superstar, or, choose anyone.
Yep.
Now, how long would that last for if, say, for example, that hypnotized person was to come back to your house and they were to spend, say, a whole weekend or a week with you? How long do you think the hypnotized effect would last? Say, for example, if you'd convinced them that you were a Hollywood actor.
If you kept doing the anchor, you kept reinforcing the anchor, it would be all the time.
Oh, my God.
Yes.
Now, Rod,
very serious,
let me jump in here because I can take this to a real life scenario and it's going to be very familiar to all our listeners out there. And we had a certain Aurora Batman shooting that took place. Now, the alleged killer in that incident, when he was taken to the jail, at first he was in the cell, never said anything. A couple of days later, he would kind of become more lucid and telling people in the cells next to him that he couldn't remember what had happened, didn't know why he was there. And then they would bring in a psychiatrist, Dr. Ewan Cameron. Now, he would visit James Holmes, leave, and for another 2 or 3 days, this alleged killer would be, again, quiet, not saying much, until 3 days later, he'd become more lucid, didn't know why he was there. Now, from your expertise as a hypnotist, does that ring any bells to you?
Yes, that's the typical anchor and trigger. He's giving the anchors all the time whilst he's talking to that person, reinforcing what they want to know or to hide or to admit.
Now, let me just say to the listeners, this doesn't prove anything. But what we're doing here is we're asking somebody with an expertise for something we've theorised about for so long. And Rod himself can't confirm what was happening with the Aurora shooter, but it certainly fits the bill.
Yes, that's right. That's why you can't use hypnotism in a court setting, because you can make the person say yes or no so easily. So a hypnotist is not allowed in a court setting whatsoever, supposedly. But whether they, like you said, they do that thing to make them believe they did shoot them or not shoot them, you can convince somebody easily that they did it. It was actually on telly with Darren Brown, how he actually convinced somebody that he'd killed somebody.
And he even had people carrying off bank heists, things
That's
like
it,
that.
yes. Again,
Absolutely amazing.
It was, if you notice, it was the triggers with the pictures, the van
on their way to the studio, they would even drive past a shop, and totally unbeknown to anyone, there would be a random picture in the shop window.
Yep,
this was enough to sink into the subliminal that would later be called upon. Rod, this is brilliant.
Yes, that's how it's done. Anchors and triggers.
Yeah. Now, I've got a question about just the five senses, Rod, in the hypnotized state.
Yes.
Would it be possible to take a person who's hypnotized and convince them that, say, for example, they had really fantastically sharp, brilliant eyesight? Like, say, for example, they could have a superpower.
You can convince them, but it wouldn't happen.
I see.
I was going to say, because I would think there would be some sort of physical limitation, Rod, right? I mean, like, for example, I'm nearsighted, very, very nearsighted. And I can't imagine that hypnosis could take into account my astigmatism and all that kind of stuff and make that correction. I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, going on a side tangent, what I also do is I do a bit of healing as well. Because being a hypnotist, I heal myself. Actually, because, short story, I hurt my back a few years ago, and I had to be taken up by the fire brigade, put into the ambulance because I was trapped under a car. And in the ambulance, they took my blood pressure and did my heart rate. And they kept rechecking my heart rate, because normally when you have an injury in ambulance, it's a very traumatic experience. And he said, why have you got such a low heart rate? Because I have a low heart rate anyway. You know, it's a traumatic experience. I think it was around about, the average heart rate's in the 60s to 70s. I think mine was about 54. And he said, why is your heart rate so low? I said, well, I'm a hypnotist. I'm telling my heart to slow. You can control, being a hypnotist, you can control your body.
Harry Houdini used to do that, right? Mm-hmm.
Yep. And I actually went skiing one year, and classic thing is, I told all my children, do not wrap the ski pole around your thumb, because if you fall over, it will hurt thumb and it will twist it right back. Classic, what I did right at the end, put it around my thumb, and I ripped all my tendons. Couldn't afford to see the doctor, so what I did, within an hour, I'd healed my thumb, and I was on the ski slope the next day.
That's amazing. Folks, one more hour with Chris Everard.
This is Truth Frequency Radio.
No hate, no hype, no fear. Real people, real radio.
Welcome back, everyone, to this week's Freaky Friday. And unfortunately, we are into the last hour already. It seems to me there must be some kind of pendulum swinging somewhere that's making time kind of dilate here. And Joe, many weeks do we say this on the trot? Absolutely epic show.
Yes, absolutely. One of the best shows we've done. Yes. No,
Till next week.
Yeah. Well, no, but this is stuff again. That there is a, I would say, a blanket curiosity. Everybody's curious about this stuff. And it's interesting because we always talk about the power of the human mind, but we very seldomly have the opportunity to have a subject matter expert. And I want to plug Rob's website. If you want to visit his website, and please, by all means, do so. It is HTTP. I got to put that in there, right? So the HTTP : Rod, RODAMPH, rodamph.angelfire.com. Yeah, check it out today, and maybe you can arrange to have Rod do a show in your locality.
Oh, I'm telling you, Joe, I'm ready to offer myself up here as a human guinea pig to get hypnotized on the air. But, Rod, you've got so many more stories to tell us, man.
Well, Kev, I'm going to come to your living room and I'll hypnotize you. We're going to put it out on the air for the listeners one day, won't we?
I absolutely think that is an idea, man. Whether you come here or I come down there,
make him think he's a five-toed yak, and I'll be just...
No. I hypnotise him, make him think he's a good presenter.
You see, this is what we've got to look forward to in 2016, folks. It could all be good.
Right, I'm going to do one. So I'm going to take over for a moment. One little thing for Chris, and then a little story for Kev. If that's okay with you, is that all right?
All right, it is absolutely perfect. I insist.
Right, talking about Chris's mind control in my shows. Sometimes at the end of the show, I have a bit of fun. With the anchor, we're talking about anchors and triggers now. At the end of the show, say somebody's been hypnotized. Classic thing is, I've just thought of another story now. Here we go. At the end of the night, I hypnotize the people. Say, "Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. When you open your eyes, a moment, you'll have a sudden urge to go and use the toilet. Blah blah blah." And then exactly 5 minutes time, you go to the bar and buy the hypnotist a vodka and coke, which is tongue in cheek. It's not nasty. It's just a bit of fun, bit of humour. But one night, I had 15 volunteers under, and I said to the 15 volunteers at the end of the show, 5 minutes time, you're going to buy the hypnotist a vodka and coke. That night, I had 15 vodka and cokes lined up on my table. That's the power. Also, what I do sometimes, if somebody's there, stood at the bar, stand next to them, I say, then just remember this is the end of the show, end of the night, I'm off, going to go home in about 20 minutes time. But what I say, when I hit my hand on the bar, you're going to give me your wallet. So what I do is I stand there, so I'll go, "Mate, hello, Rod, there's my wallet, mate. Okay." I'm going to turn around and talk to their friends as if nothing has happened whatsoever. They've just given me every penny they own. And I go, "Mate, you've lost your wallet." And I go, hand it back to us. "Oh, thanks, Rod. Where'd you find it?" On the floor. And I go, anyway, I go, "Hey, Rod, here's my wallet. There we go. Thanks, mate." And without knowing why, they'll just hand me their wallet just because of that hitting of the bar with that sound.
Yeah. No, I did actually see a episode of Darren Brown at Catford Greyhound track.
Yeah.
He bought a he bought a betting ticket on a Greyhound that lost.
Yeah.
But he took the losing ticket to the payout counter.
Yeah.
He tapped like that on the side of the cashier's window.
Yep.
And he said, "This is the winning ticket."
Yep, saw that.
Very she looked at it. She didn't get the money immediately, but she was looking at it. But then, she did actually get the money and give it to him.
Yeah, exactly.
But would that have involved, Rod, off camera? Would that have required Darren Brown to maybe put her through some induction beforehand?
He chose a very, very, very susceptible person. It doesn't work on everybody. Obviously, they, off camera, they looked at the different booths that were there, and they chose somebody, possibly spoke to them beforehand, about horse. And as you speak to them, you know if they're susceptible or not.
And you would know, you've worked with this dude, right?
Yes, I can tell within 30 seconds of people if they're susceptible or not. I can read their lives within 30 seconds.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
I was telling Chris about that. You didn't know about that, do you, Kev?
No, I don't know about this. Tell me more.
Well, another story. No, I'm going to tell you that other story at the moment.
Yeah, good.
Anyway,
Any story.
Anyway, I've got hundreds of stories in my shows. You'll be stitches. I'd finished. What I do is I get in hypno mode. Sometimes, ordinary day to day, I'm just, Mr. Joe Blogs in the street. But when I'm in hypno mode, I go into a different personality. And at the end of the show, this group of blokes came up and said, Rod, can you hypnotise our mates and do something funny? I went, okay. He said, by the way, we're all policemen. I went, oh, is that what you didn't volunteer? She said, yeah, we can't go up on stage and be humiliated. I said, okay, to me, I don't care who you are in life, you're a judge, a bank robber, whatever. To me, you're just a human being. So what I did is I hypnotised 4 of them in front of all their mates, and I said, when I clap my hands, you think all Alsatian dogs are going to be humping each other on the pool table. And I went, next thing you know, they all climbed on the pool table and were humping each other's legs like Alsatian dogs. And their friends were going mental.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, I've got a question, Rod. On my Mind Hackers show, I discovered this guy who had a technique for dealing with police officers if you ever got stopped in your car.
Yes.
And he actually demonstrates it, and you can see it on my show. What he did is he drove around and around and around and around the block until he found a police car, doing its normal patrol.
Yeah.
He deliberately maneuvered his car in front of the police car, and they came to a red light.
Yeah.
Now, what happened is that he deliberately put his foot down and sped off when the light went green, knowing full well that he was doing it right in front of this police car.
Yeah.
And, sure enough, the police car goes after him and they wave him to pull over. And the police officer comes up to the window and he says, do you realize that, you took off at like double the speed limit from the lights, and, you have to be more careful than that. And this guy's technique is always the same. He always says to the officer, can you tell me where the nearest petrol station is, please? And the officer then says, well, okay, but, I'm telling you about your speeding. And then he clicks his fingers and he says, forget that for the moment. I just want you to tell me where the petrol station is.
Yeah.
Forget it for now. Yeah. Please give me directions. And I tell you now, this bloke's been using this technique whenever he's been stopped. And he says, you can see it on my show, he says it never fails. The officer...
That's true.
It's like it's redirecting the officer's mind into giving him directions. And then, so the officer says, well, you drive a couple of miles down there and you do a right and there's a petrol station there. He clicks his fingers again and he says, that's great. And he says something like, he actually says, you're gonna let me free to go to the petrol station.
You know what I get from that, Chris? I mean, we've got the police very connected with the military, a lot of ex-military people in there. And I wonder when they go and do the police training, if there's any kind of triggers put in them
I'm
then.
sure they are.
And maybe this guy has tapped into that.
Well, I'll tell you now, you can see it on my show, Mind Hackers. The guy is so confident, he says he's been doing it for years.
In actual fact, I've seen that clip, not necessarily on your thing, but I saw it many years ago, and it is true, because I do... I've done that a little bit myself, not with the police, but with friends of mine. I don't use the clicking fingers. I use another different technique, but you make them forget something completely.
So why would the clicking of fingers, or we often see a pendulum as well? Why does that work, Rod?
The clicking of fingers is a trigger. The thing is, I used the pendulum as a joke. It does work, but basically it's making you concentrate on one thing. Again, it's being blinkered, like you mentioned earlier about sitting in front of the telly, being blinkered. The pocket watch makes you concentrate on just one thing. You watch it backwards and forwards. Your concentration is on that pendulum or watch, whatever. That's all it is. You have a certain, like a tunnel vision. So as you're looking at it, then you're being spoken to. Your mind isn't wondering, oh, what's going on in the street? What's the weather like? Your mind is just tunnel vision on that pendulum. As I talk to you, you will listen to my voice. And that's why it's used. gone quiet.
No, I'm just,
Yeah.
just
Sorry,
listening
I was hypnotized by the story.
I'm looking at the pendulum here.
I've forgotten the other story I was going to tell you now.
You see, we hypnotized you, Rod.
Yeah, see, reverse hypnotized you. Ha ha!
Yeah.
Take that.
But, let's shift gears a little bit here, because you mentioned mediumship. Now, how did you find that you were tapped into that?
It sounds weird. I just decided one day that I'm going to do it.
Probably might shock you, but it doesn't sound weird on Freaky Friday.
The thing I talked to Chris before the show. I keep forgetting what I've told him. I haven't told you. Being such a confident person, being on stage. The thing is, if you want to be a hypnotist or an entertainer, the first thing you have to think about is you have to stand on stage with just you, a microphone, empty stage in front of 1,000 people. Okay, that's what I did. And you have to think to yourself, I'm confident I can do this. Tonight's going to be an amazing show. If you're the person that can't even get up on stage and say a word, forget it. But to be a hypnotist, you have to have total confidence.
Well, I used to be really nervous before I started this, Rod. And I used to end up, and Johnny can probably back this up, but they call me Quantum Kev on here sometimes, right? Because I go into a bit of the quantum stuff. And I used to say to John, don't worry about it. I've already had a look. It's been a good show. And I used to kind of visualize in my own mind that everything went well. Yeah. Now, whether that worked or not, it sounds like maybe I was tapping into something that you're just describing here.
Yeah, you've got to give yourself total confidence. And the thing is, because I got total confidence, because when my father died, I was out of work. So, I looked into hypnotism and taught myself that. But I also thought, well, because I'm unusual, I got the yellow pages out. I used to look on the internet as well. What's the most unusual job I can do? Because I don't want to work in an office. I don't want a 9 to 5. So I became a private detective. Did that for a while. I then joined our Royal Mail Service. Did that for a while. I was just about to be made assistant manager of the southwest of England. I thought, no, don't want to be in an office. Bored now. What's next? I became an undertaker. My job was to pick all the dead bodies off the road, the accidents, people's homes, buried, you name it, the whole thing.
And even keep Jimmy Savile out of your establishment.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Now then, as it happens. Yeah. Yeah, so, I even did that. So any job, like I was a plumber for 20 years, I turned up on site. One day, there was a man with a 20-ton digger. I thought, that looks interesting. I can do that. And I walked to him and said, you got any jobs going, mate? He said, get in, show me then. And all I'd driven was those little mini hire things that you hire yourself on the weekends. I thought it was got to be the same. So I got in this 20-ton digger, thought, yeah, I can do this. Did it. And I was hired, and I did that for about 6 months as well, as a digger driver. Basically, you've got to tell yourself all the time, believe in yourself. If you turn up to somebody, it's the first, I think it's 30 seconds. It's either 6 or 30 seconds of your introduction to that person that's interviewing you. If you believe in yourself, they believe in you as well, and they believe you can do that job. You've got to believe in yourself there.
Yeah.
So basically, you give them that initial impression, and you reinforce it like an anchor.
Yeah, but you've got to believe in yourself anyway that you can do it, and exactly you've got to give that impression that you are the person for the job and you can do it. So you've got to have so much confidence in yourself.
Like it's almost as if you've already got the job.
Yeah, exactly. I can do this. Give me the job. I know I can do it. I know I can do this. And they go, he's so confident, he must be able to do it. So, yeah, the job's yours.
No, it's not bad that even if he says no, you can still hypnotise him into giving you it anyway.
Yeah. In actual fact, here we go, back to one of my shows again. I did a show once, don't know where it was, and they all said to me that the landlady was really, really stingy. So what I did at the end, she actually hypnotised her. At the end of the show, she gave everybody a pay rise. Just ran. I told her she'd do that, and she said, "Right, I've decided, staff, now you all have a pay rise as from the 1st of January." Of course, she, wouldn't have gone through with it, but for that time when I told her, she did everything I wanted her to.
I will pay for your ticket to Glasgow, Rod. I need you here. But, I was asking you about the mediumship there.
Oh, yes.
And in your time doing the mediumship, what kind of interesting stories can you tell us from that?
Oh, wow. In actual fact, listeners, if you go onto YouTube, I have many, many videos on there. Put my name in, Rod Scarth. That's ROD SCARTH. There's lots of my show stuff on there. There's also some of my medium stuff on there. Don't know if you realise that.
And it's a good YouTube channel. I've checked it out,
yeah.
Rod.
Yeah. Oh, thank you very much. Basically, I went. One of them, it's actually on YouTube, and we went to this haunted pub, and there was this little child running round, and I didn't hypnotise anyone. I don't use hypnosis. I just use my open mind to feel any spirits around. And this little child was running around, actually tugging at people's clothing and touching them on the legs. And if you want to see that, that's on YouTube. That again, my daughter videoed it, and you can actually see it on YouTube. It was amazing. Like, there was nobody hypnotized. It was just pure inner circle. You're all welcome. And this little child was running around.
So, Rod, what do you put this down to? Do you put this down to what they call residual energy? Or are we talking about multi-dimensional here? Is there a plane just without our frequency that we aren't tuned to, where these spirits, for lack of a better term, reside?
The thing is, even though I do it, I am not an expert. I just do what I feel. I don't question it. I've done a few people's houses where they go, Rod, we think our house is haunted. And I've gone there and I said, right. They said, one of the rooms we just don't feel comfortable in. And I've gone in the house and said, right, just let me wander freely. And without any prompting, I've told them which room it was, what the person looked like. And I even said, look, he sits in that chair, he's smoking a pipe, and he used to have a Jack Russell curled up on the fire, and his wife used to sit over there. And they said, how did you know this? I said, I don't know, I can just feel it, I can see it in my mind like a third eye. And I said, that's the room that he upsets you in. They said, how do you know? I said, I don't know, it's being a hypnotist or whether I've got the gift or what, I just don't know, I just can do it. Which I enjoy, I must admit. It's a bit frightening sometimes. I can see these things when I look.
This is really crazy how everything connects together, because, Chris, we were talking about Crowley at the start of the show and things like that. Yeah. And the energy and the demons that they were tapping into. Now, you mentioned yogis, and they were very big into this pineal gland and traveling via the third eye.
Yeah.
The exact language there that Rod's using.
Absolutely. I've written an entire book about the sacred plants and the sacred herbs which are used in magical ritual. And the thing is that over the years of doing all this research, I've really realized that university department archaeology people, they are so, when you look at all of these great temples in Egypt and Greece, and in the ancient world, all of these pyramids and temples, mastabas and underground crypts and grottos, they were all built for summoning spirits and high ceremonial magic. Not fake magic, but, the real root of real magic is really spirit communication and commanding those invisible spiritual entities. And, it's almost as if none of this even exists in the official textbooks. You can buy 4 or 5 tons worth of books about Egypt, and it's
all baloney, Chris, yeah.
Yeah, they wouldn't even mention spirit evocation.
Right.
The reason that the pyramids and these temples, like the Temple of Hatshepsut, is aligned to certain constellations and stars and planets is because these spirits come through stronger at certain times of the year. And that's the link between astronomy and astrology in the ancient world. The same thing with Stonehenge, Avebury, all of these megalithic stone circles. They were all venues for bringing through non-physical entities. And so archaeology, as it stands at the moment, is so blind. It's literally, got to the stage where it's just so laughable. And we had this big discovery called the Witch's Table in Wiltshire, which was 12 sarsen stones, similar to the Stonehenge stones that are buried underground. They were found using geophysics radar. But, that is obviously the same as Göbekli Tepe, you see, because what they would do is they would put a lot of effort into carving these stones. They would insert them into the Earth's crust and then cover them over with earth. A lot of tumuli actually have stones inside them.
Well, let's ask Rod here, because, Rod, you're in Wiltshire. Have you been to these stone circles at all? What do you feel when you go into them?
In actual fact, I live not far from Avebury in Wiltshire. I think they are very significant. I think they still hold some sort of residual energy. When I've actually been to them, I haven't been to Stonehenge, but Avebury's just down the road. And when I go to Avebury, I think they hold so much energy still. I don't know what or how it's done. But
now, it's all speculation, Rod, but these things are built on ley lines. Do you think the planet has a natural energy? Do you think you might perform better somewhere than somewhere else if you were doing a mediumship, if you were on these ley lines?
I think so, yes, definitely. Because in actual fact, when I was many, many years ago, I actually lead a meditation group near Avebury. And the things I saw and people saw when I did my the meditations, they were absolutely amazing. Which again, we were only about 3 miles from Avebury, might have been on the ley lines, but it was an amazing experience.
Wow, Chris, are you catching this? This really all does tie together.
It certainly does. It certainly does. Now, I've got a couple of questions for Rod here, because I've been reading up on these old grimoire books of magic. There seems to be two kind of threads running through these old books of magic. One of them seems to be the ability to do divination, finding water, finding gold, finding, a valuable thing in the ground.
Which I totally agree with.
Yeah, and then the second theme that you find in these old books is really love charms. People go to a magician and they want Mr. XYZ or Mrs. XYZ to fall in love with them.
Mm.
Now, in terms of discussing those two things in terms of hypnotism, could you hypnotize somebody so that they would have an amplified sensitivity to ley lines or paranormal phenomena, which is what you see with the diviners who have their divining rods?
You caught me on the hop, but I should imagine so, yes, because I actually use the divining to find water. Sounds weird, but my brother had a natural talent for water divining, because we used to go into a field with say for a farmer, he said, we've got a leak here. You'd have to dig up the whole field to find that pipe where the leak was.
Yeah.
But my brother used to actually go straight to the place, dig up, and he saved thousands and thousands of pounds by just going straight to that place with the it was only coat hangers that we used.
Yep.
But went straight to the place and did it. Even I do it now when I do my haunted fright nights for energy going through the ground.
So you could hypnotize somebody to amplify their natural ability? I
think so, yes.
Wow, that is just so mind-blowing.
Because, like I said, when I do the healing of myself, even if I get a sore throat, when your throat swells up, I can hypnotize myself and I can make my throat unswell and go back to normal again.
Wow.
So I imagine if you have a natural ability, if you have an ability to do something, I can heighten that ability in your body.
Chris, we are all natural antennas anyway with this electromagnetic system we have. And basically,
absolutely,
if the listeners think about it, all Rod is doing and the process that he's describing is basically fine-tuning us.
Yeah, I'm an amplifier for you.
That's exactly what it is. Now, we're almost going out to the break, guys. Absolutely brilliant. Joe, are you still there, man? Have you got your brain? Joe's
no, I think he's for a moment, I thought I was a Sunbeam toaster, but I am back.
No, just to add to it, right, you didn't realise, but at the end of the show, you're all going to send me your paychecks.
Oh, probably.
Well,
If we got one.
because, boy, you'll be shocked by that one. Don't worry. Don't mind the minuscule amount that you get, which is nothing, because we don't get paid for this kind of.
No, listen,
this
guys.
is something that we love and we enjoy, Rod. And I'll tell you what, tonight you've really captivated us. So it's just been an awesome night tonight, and we still got one more segment to go.
And not only that, Joe, the listeners. I mean, we're the warm-up act for the Geos.
For the Geos, does it get any better than that?
Exactly. Now, I don't know who Chris and Cherie have on tonight, but I can guarantee it is going to be much of the same and then some. So don't go anywhere, folks. We've still got half an hour to go on Freaky Friday, right here on your number one network, truthfrequencyradio.com. And yes, this really is a great Christmas.
You're listening to the Truth Frequency Radio Network.
No hate, no hype, no fear.
Welcome back, everyone, to this week's Freaky Friday. I'm one of your hosts, Kev Baker. Tonight, I'm joined by Joe Joseph, Johnny Whistles, Mr. Christopher Everard, and the one and only Rod Scarth. This has been an absolutely brilliant show. And you know, I sit here and I think while the guys talking, putting things together, we always call the politicians out there puppets. And you know, after listening to Rod tonight and Chris with his mind hacking stuff, they truly are Manchurian candidates. Yeah. They are puppets on a string. And you know, Chris, the listeners out there, they've been waiting for a very, very special Christmas treat. And one of these Manchurian candidates is, of course, Obama. And a few weeks ago, we teased the audience with our very own Johnny Whistles here. He had penned a song dedicated to the one and only Obama-Nocchio. Now, he promised us all it would be ready for Christmas night. So, sit back, folks. Here we go. The world premiere of Johnny Whistles and the Obama-Nocchio Blues. John, why isn't it playing?
Well, I told you, life's about the side you choose. You don't have any work and you feel like blowing a fuse. You ain't got no money and no shiny shoes, but you're sitting there believing all the bullshit in the news. I say, hey boy, you got a Bamanoid blues. Well, I told you what it's all about. Everything you try makes you feel like they're freezing you out. Your debt's in a spiral, but they still want the Jews because this preferential treatment goes to Satan and his crew. I say, hey boy, you got a Bamanoid blues. The 1% are hanging out, still trying to bring about the one world government filled with super wonderment. But hold on tight, the fight's on and I'm first in line. I'm the 99. Well, I told you that it's all a game. Agenda 21 sees nothing's ever gonna be the same. No more Grand Canyons, no Santa Cruz. Everything is secret, so there's no one to accuse. I say, hey boy, you got a Bamanoid blues. Oh, hey boy, you got a Bamanoid blues.
Absolutely fantastic. Our very own Johnny Whistles. John, you have outdone yourself, man.
Kev, it was just I had a laugh making it, so it was good fun, mate.
A laugh? That is absolutely brilliant. Joe, I'm going to put together a special video for YouTube. We're going to get that out there. It's unbelievable. And, you know, I wonder if, like, the Beatles on their Sgt. Pepper's band, they might just, like Johnny Whistles, might slip Aleister Crowley onto the cover. And talking of Crowley, Chris, that takes us right back to the start of the show and this magic ritual he was carrying out.
Yeah, well, I've just been doing a bit of reading up on it. I am, you know, completely familiar with all of these ancient books of grimoires. I've got a big library. I've got some copies of grimoires that go back to the mid-1800s. Apparently, Boleskine House was specifically bought by Crowley to do the working of the guardian angel. And that is written into the Book of Abra Melin.
Right, I'm going to have to write my local expertise here, Chris. If anyone in my local area is listening, they're going to insist on you calling it Boleskine House.
Oh, Boleskine House, okay.
That is exactly it.
Okay. Now, it seems to me, if I read you what I've got here, essentially what it is you're meant to be using the ritual to bring forward your guardian angel. And once the guardian angel has revealed itself to you, you then evoke 12 infernal spirits. Now, these are the 12 primary spirits of hell. They are the 12 primary demons. And then the ritual allows you to erase any bad influence that those 12 demons have on your life. Once you've gone through that part of the ritual, you then command those 12 primary demons of hell to bring forth 4 familiars, 4 lesser spirits, who basically become your kind of support team. If you want to, say, for example, know where there's a seam of gold buried in the ground, or know where somebody's buried treasure, these familiar spirits are meant to be under your command for the rest of time. So that's essentially what Crowley was doing. Now, he'd actually performed the Abramelin 6-month ritual in Paris. I don't know whether that was successful or not for him, but he then went up to Loch Ness, bought that house, and he didn't finish I think the reason that it became a bit of a psychic kind of wormhole is because he rushed off to Paris again and he didn't complete the ceremony. And I think what happens is that when you've broken a ritual, broken a working, left it unfinished, it's rather like breaking the magic circle. You see, magic circles are made, they're not just inscriptions on the floor. Magic circles can be made from dried doe skin from deer, and they can also be made from rope, and they can also be made using salt as well.
I was just going to say salt as well is a very common way, Chris.
Yeah, well, the reason that the monks wear their robes with a rope around the middle is because that comes from the magic circle. What they used to do is they used to make a magic circle on the ground with a rope, invoke and attract these spirits into the magic circle, and then give them the license to depart, which is clearing the ritual space and getting rid of those entities that have been called through once they've given you the information that you want. And the rope, you see, the actual circumference of a magic circle is really an extension of the human aura, and it's a protective barrier. And so what the magicians used to do is at the end of the ritual, after they've cleared the space and got rid of those spiritual entities, they used to then wrap that rope around their waists to give them extra protection. And that's why these brotherhoods, these monks, especially the Trappist monks, who went off and formed the country which we now call the Dominican Republic, actually walk around with ropes around their waists. That comes from the magical tradition in ancient Iraq. So, yeah, that's basically what was going on up near Loch Ness.
Well, I'm telling you, Chris, you need to come up my way sometime. We'll get your drone up. We'll film the ruins of Boleskine House. But there's so many stories from up that way.
Yeah.
It really does make me wonder. And Rod, you know, we're talking about auras there. It wouldn't surprise me if you can see these things as well.
In actual fact, I was waiting for you to say that. That's one thing I don't see, actually. Mine's just energy and using the third eye with spirits, but auras is one talent I will admit I do not have.
Now, Rod, I do have a question for you. What happens if you try and hypnotize somebody? I mean, I presume it's not possible to hypnotize somebody that doesn't speak English.
No, it's not. That's why when I'm in Greece, they say, "Oh, try me." Your first tongue, your first mother language has to be English.
Yeah.
Or whatever, or whatever the hypnotist, if it's Italian, then it has to be an Italian person you're hypnotizing.
I see. Do you
it's basically it's a way because it's my tone of voice. It's how I speak softly. Then I'm powerful. It's like that because the typical Greek is whenever you hear them speaking, they think they're arguing all the time. So they don't understand. They don't understand speaking softly and slowly and to relax. So they can't. I know it's rude, but I say, are you Greek? Well, I'm sorry, I can't do it because I don't want to look the fool trying, knowing that 90% of the time it's not going to work.
Yeah, because I was wondering whether the subliminal mind transgresses language. Whether you could actually speak in a different language to a hypnotized person, and whether the subliminal mind would understand it.
Well, on a bit of a tangent there, yet again, when I talk about Corfu all the time, I'm afraid, because that's where 99% of my work's done.
Yeah, that's a beautiful city, yeah.
Yes, it is. When I'm out there, when I've done a show, at the end of the show, I do go out on the town, have a few drinks, and it's, Rod, hypnotize me. It's just like, I'm just, in my mind, I'll just go away. But, you got to put the smile on, you're an entertainer.
I could see you sitting back with the, little Johnny Walker Black on the rocks, and then just all of a sudden, and, okay.
Vodka and Coke. Anyway, because I get in all the clubs free, I just wander in the club, have a sit down. Rod, you did a great show tonight. Yeah, thanks a lot. And a classic, I remember these two girls, this is right, I can talk about this. These two girls came to the bar and said, Rod, hypnotise me. It's just like, I became so blasé. I thought, oh, really? Okay.
Oh, damn.
Here we go again. Two beautiful 18-year-old girls. I thought, no, here we go. Anyway, sat at the bar. I thought, now I'm drinking me drink. I just couldn't be bothered. I said, okay, girls, go over there, sit down. Total strangers. They just said it at the same time. Go over there, sit on the settee, and I'll hypnotise her. He said, okay. Now this is, how blasé is this? All I did was I turned round at them, stared them in the eye. I can't show it on the radio, but I outstretched my arm. I put my first, second, third, and fourth finger out towards them, lowered it down without saying a word, and they fell to each other and got hypnotised deep down.
Wow.
Without saying a word.
Wow.
And then I turned around and carried on drinking.
a lot of this susceptibility comes from their enthusiasm to want to be hypnotized, doesn't it?
Just going to say that. Yeah. Wow, yeah.
Yes, because they want to be hypnotized. They're expecting it. So I haven't got to do the legwork to it because they want to do it already. They've asked my permission to do it. So
Chris, I'm sorry, Rod. I was going to say basically they open the door for you.
Yes, exactly. They want it ready. I could have gone up to them, hypnotized them separately, do the 5-second thing, but I thought, no, so that I'm enjoying my drink. I'm going to, I always like to push the boundaries. I think, will this work? And I think, yeah, it's going to work. Let's do it, Rod. Right, girls, go and sit there. I'm going to hypnotize you. There's no question it's not going to work. So go and sit there. Look at me now. And that was it. That's the only words I said. Right, I'm going to hypnotize you. Go and sit there. And I've never said another word to them. I just put my arm out, lowered it slowly. They looked at my hand. And as they looked at my hand, the eyes shut. And they actually fell into each other. Bang, gone asleep.
Wow. Now, I want to ask you, about sudden, instant inductions where, say, for example, there's a barrier between you and the other person. Say you go into, say, for example, the post office and they've got, the glass screen that you speak to.
Yeah.
Is it always necessary, Rod, that the hypnotist has a physical touch with the actual subject?
No, like you said with Darren Brown, it was just a bang on the counter.
Yeah.
It's a sign or a signal that something's going to happen. That's called the shock technique. Another one. Yeah, that's the shock technique of going under. No.
Wow.
Even I don't even have to be looking at a person just to use my voice.
I don't know what's happening, guys, but Anne's running about the living room like a chicken.
That's awesome. Oh, I thought you were maybe trying it yourself, Kev. So it was effective. It worked.
I'm on some kind of love techniques here, man.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Do you know what? Now talking about that nastily, right? When many years ago, when I did my shows, I've actually had. I don't know if people remember News of the World. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, yes.
Yes, I had them ringing me up, trying to get me into trouble. Nasty little people they were.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm a hypnotist. Do you think you can help my wife and I with our sex life? And I thought, yes, here we go. Nice little scoop weekend reading.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, the amount of times that happened, it's like the wife and I looked at it. Yeah,
The
I can't.
clicking on your phone gave it away, Rod, didn't it?
Yeah, the amount of times they tried to get me to to stitch me up, and I still get it. Can you help me with my sex life? Can you help me do this? In the show I do it for entertainment. That's it. Other than that, someone.
Now, Rod, we mentioned politicians earlier, and on my Mind Hackers show on the Enigma channel, I actually spent a long time going through various clips of politicians.
Yeah.
One of them is an amazing clip of Tony Blair.
Oh, I was thinking of him actually.
Yeah, he's giving a press conference in number 10.
Yeah.
He's rolling along, all the cameras are there, ITN, everybody's there. And he just looks to one side. He looks kind of mildly startled. He's frozen with his hands, because he speaks with his hands.
Yeah, yeah.
He's frozen with his hands not moving. He's looking to one side. And it lasts for about 8-9 seconds, which is quite a long time considering he's in front of the world's media.
Yeah.
What do you think that is, Rod? Do you think that is a sign that somebody's got in there and meddled with his brain, or what do you think it could be?
Well,
Could it be psychic fatigue, maybe?
You're giving him the benefit of the doubt that he's got a brain in the first place.
Well,
he's certainly got a brain. It's an evil brain.
They're all puppets anyway, aren't they? We know that. Yeah, we know they're all powered from some of the blooming person, that they're just little puppets. Anyway, not going down that streak at the moment.
Yeah. Do you think that is a sign of some kind of hypnotic breakdown?
It's one of two things. It's either you've noticed that you really noticed the pause, didn't you?
Yeah.
And it got your attention, didn't it?
Yeah.
Exactly. Your blinker does the why. Why is he doing that? And you take more notice of what he's doing, so that when he starts again, you're noticing what he's saying more than if it's like something's weird and what's going on? Why is he doing that? Your attention is drawn to him with those few seconds. He's not doing anything. Why is he doing that?
I do get what you're saying, but in actual fact, he stuttered the last few words, and when he started speaking again, he was very shaky.
All right.
He didn't do it intentionally.
Totally honest, I couldn't, without seeing the clip and how his reactions look, I can't honestly say.
Yeah, because in the second Illuminati film, which I made, it was released in 2006. I was the first person to get this clip of Bill Clinton.
Yeah. And
he is definitely in some kind of trance state. There's no two ways about it. He's so kind of, he looks like, there is this term that I read about years ago called park mode, where a hypnotized person is put into park mode.
Yeah.
Where they're like, they're not being given any instruction right there and then. They're just like waiting.
Gotcha. Yeah, so he might have been waiting for a trigger to carry on with the script he's been given.
That Clinton clip has to be the most epic example of this ever.
Yeah. Yeah, that's on the Enigma channel now. If people want to go to enigmatv.com, it's in the second Illuminati film, which I made in 2006.
That and the stenographer, I think, as well. I think the stenographer at the White House, when she was given the trigger, and she walked up and started shouting about the Illuminati at the podium and couldn't remember a thing.
That was utterly bizarre, and that happened, I believe it was just after a State of the Union address, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right, Kev.
And it was as if somebody whispered...
Wasn't it at the House of Representatives or in the Congress?
Yeah, it was something like that, and it was somebody whispered in her ear, and then she walks right up, in a trance almost, and I believe people have spoke to them since, and her husband, they both say that this woman has no recognition or recollection of what went on.
Kev, see when the guy gave her the trigger, when she walked away, he went on his phone. Now, he never even looked at her while she was doing her rant on the podium. He was on his phone in a totally different direction.
Almost like a demonstration because it was going out live on air.
Yep.
Yeah, my reading of it is it's the opposite of John's reading. What I read into it is that everyone that you see there has been vetted. They've been vetted on several different levels by the intelligence community. They've been vetted socially and financially. You don't get into being a congressman or into the Senate without going through these vetting processes.
Yeah.
Selection processes, and they are all programmed, and that for some reason her programming broke down, and that she had this sudden jolt of realization that she was in this kind of macabre theater, and that it was being run by, as she said, evil people.
On a bit of a tangent of that, sorry, it's about me again.
Yeah,
but many years ago, when I was bored, everybody goes through it when they're desperate for money. I used to be a double glazing salesman.
Oh yeah.
And you go away for these courses at a hotel for 2 or 3 nights, and they teach you all this. And when I was there, I mentioned to the trainer I was a hypnotist. He said, "Okay, Rod, you take over." He said, "I want you to pick out now for me, basically put them into groups and give me a leader." Mm-hmm. And so what I did the classic. I'd read everybody by that time already who were the natural leaders just by talking to them. And I said, right, him. Just by talking to them, I can tell who was the natural leader, who was the submissive, and I just put it in the groups. He said, perfect. I can tell who are the leaders, who are the submissive, who are the people that are going to go under, who are the ones that aren't. I can just read those people so easily. And I suppose that's what these people do as well who are chosen for the government.
Well,
I
Rod,
think so.
We're up against a population, not just in Britain, but across the world that is suffering from a collective hypnosis. And people are asleep at the wheel right now. And a question from the chat is, with everyone almost being in this hypnotized state, is there any way that we can counter that with hypnosis of our own to snap people out of the trance they're in?
I always think of The Matrix, to be honest. I love that film, and I think that's what life is at the moment. Basically, if you like, I always think of myself, I'm not a sheep. I'm the wolf. I'm not going to follow. I'm going to question everything. If you just follow everybody else, you're going to be hypnotized. You're going to let yourself believe everything. But if you question everything, think of yourself as the wolf. Basically, question everything that's going on. Don't let yourself be hypnotized. Say, why is this happening? Why are they doing that? Question everything. Because if I try to hypnotize somebody, if they question everything, I can't hypnotize them. Simple fact, even in a show. If they're thinking, why? Why is he trying to do this? Why is he doing that? End of story. I asked them to leave the stage. So if you question everything, there you go. You cannot be hypnotized.
And it might be Rod's first visit here to the network, but it certainly sounds to me as if we've found a real person here on the truth frequency. He really does seem to get it. And Joe, wow, almost at the end of 3 hours, my friend. Again, epic.
Amazing, you know, and the whole I really enjoy when we talk about Crowley, because man, people don't realize just how wicked that guy was, and how much influence
so much
that he
today,
wielded.
Joe. I mean, everything we see today, the symbology, all tied
Sure.
to it.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, this is great, and Rod, I hope that we can have you on again real soon, because this was just a treat, real treat.
I've enjoyed it, actually. It'd be a pleasure to come back on whenever you want me back on again.
Even though it's almost 3 a.m. here in the UK. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Joe, this is all your fault, you know.
Totally my fault. Sorry about that, man.
Crazy stuff, man. But Chris, where can people find your new documentary?
Yeah, it's a mini-series. So the pilot is already available on the Enigma channel. That's enigmatv.com. And if they want to check out my personal website, it's christophereverard.com, EVERARD. And this Mind Hackers mini-series that I've been working on, you know, you've got TV commercials, and you've got Hollywood celebrities and Hollywood films, and you've got politicians, and it's very, very serious. It's, you know, I wanted to make the Mind Hackers miniseries so that all of the instances or proofs of hypnosis could be seen in a really enjoyable documentary. And I've even surprised myself. I mean, there's people walking up to police officers, you know, there's everything in there, everything from Disney films to people hypnotizing people to get money, which obviously I don't agree with that type of thing, but you can see it right in front of your eyes.
And
it's
Chris,
all in one show.
There is the music, and this has been entertainment. It's been enjoyable, and you know what?
It's been epic.
Highly relevant, very informative. And
I've
for
enjoyed it.
another week, folks, remember, keep it real, and wherever you are, make it TFR.
Thank you very much. Let's just hope you've enjoyed listening to me tonight as well.
Yeah.
Amazing work.
Is that right? Wow.
Yeah, I even hypnotized the London School of Dance. They rang me up, got me at the Yellow Pages book, and to make the dance performances more imaginative and more interesting.
Oh, folks,
Wow.
let's hold that thought there. There is the music. What did I tell you, Joe? This was going to be a Christmas
Fascinating.
track. Don't go
Absolutely
anywhere, folks, because I have so many questions for Rod on the other side. Talk about freaky. We haven't even started yet. Stay tuned, folks. Coming up after this, the Geos. Don't go anywhere.
This is the Truth Frequency Radio Network. We are TFR. Truth Frequency
Welcome back, everyone, to hour number 2, right here on your Christmas Freaky Friday, with me, one of your hosts, Kev Baker, and tonight, the Woo Crew. We've got Joe Joseph and Johnny Whistles. 2 very special guests. We've got a man from the network here himself, Mr. Christopher Everard. You can find his work over at enigmatv.com. And we are joined by hypnotist Rod Scarth. Now, we were getting into it before the break, and all of us are so full of questions for Rod. It's unbelievable. But Rod, you were explaining how you were self-taught. Now, please talk to us about how you go about teaching yourself these magical powers.
Yes, please do.
Well, basically, not even though people say not everybody can be a hypnotist, I'm just a very unusual person. If you ever get to meet me, you'll see why.
You'll fit in very well here.
Yeah, I'm a bit freaky. Basically, I've always been a people watcher. I'm the person that will sit at the end of the bar and just study human behavior. Even at 15 years of age, I bought a book called Man Watching, just because I liked to study human behavior. I took up yoga, meditation, etc. at 17. Nothing really happened because I was a plumber for 20 years, which has nothing to do with hypnotism. And then father died. Basically, I was left penniless. And I'll tell you how I started to be a hypnotist. One night I went to see a hypnotist in a pub, and he hypnotized this bloke to come up thinking he was an Alsatian dog and actually bit me on the leg. And I thought, wow, I want to do that. But it cost thousands of pounds to learn how to be a hypnotist. And I thought, well, I hadn't got thousands of pounds. I got £5 in my pocket, and I still want to be a hypnotist. So I went to the library, and I literally read the library dry on Jung, Freud, psychology, meditation, hypnosis, anything to do with the mind.
Well, you know, Rod, I probably suggest to you went about it the right way, because I imagine there's a lot of snake oil salesmen out there, a lot of shysters who claim to be able to teach these powers, but really can't.
Yes, there still is, but I'm not mentioning any names. Basically, I read the library dry, and when I'd done that, I felt so confident. I'm a confident person anyway, but I felt so confident. After I'd done that, a month later, I went to my local pub and said, look, I'm a hypnotist. I haven't done a show yet. I'll do it to you for free. All you do is pass the hat round at the end of the night, and if success, I'll make a few bob. They went, okay. So I went on. I had a Radio Shack microphone, a cassette recorder, which I had to walk up to and push play and stop for my music. Did an hour show, was an absolute success. They passed the hat round. I got £25 and absolutely loved it. From then, I've never looked back.
Absolutely fantastic.
I like to hypnotise the one, like I said, the graphic designers and the people that are very, very open-minded, who are open to new ideas.
And I was asking you during the break, and I think it's probably an important distinguish between the two, but I was asking you the difference between a stage magician and a hypnotist. Could you speak to that, Rod?
Yes, absolutely, way, way, way worlds apart. A magician is somebody who uses illusions to trick you. You always know it's a trick. It's like, look at what I can do. Isn't that amazing? I've tricked you, like a con man. They use cards and sometimes special envelopes to put words in. They think they read your mind. But with a hypnotist, all it is pure truth and mind control. That's why I do a lot of street hypnosis, just to prove to absolute total strangers in the street I've never met, I hypnotize them in 5 seconds. There's no trickery, there's no deception. It is just pure hypnosis and mind control in those few seconds.
Wow. And I have to say, Rod, before I stumbled on your work, I had actually seen what's known as the hypnotic induction being performed.
Yeah.
I'd seen a hypnotist several years ago on the island of Ibiza.
Right.
And I deliberately got to the show early so that I could actually see the induction. What he did is he did a kind of primary induction that was not part of the show with a group of people beforehand, and I've actually seen that before. What's amazing about you is that you are literally doing what took him maybe 20 minutes. You're doing it in a matter of seconds.
Yes, exactly. And
he was very good, by the way. He was very good, but he was...
I probably know him, actually.
Oh, really? That's good. I suppose that the hypnotist world is a small world, is it?
Yeah, the professionals do tend to stick together, and we talk about, what's going on in the circle.
Yeah.
But the trouble is there's so many wannabes now who watch a show and think, yes, I can do that, and they really have brought the profession down.
Yes.
But the thing with my induction, because like I said, I'm completely self-taught, and nobody's shown me how to do induction. I've taught myself.
Yeah.
Is my induction is done before the audience. There's
that's right.
No hiding behind curtains. It's like volunteers make your way to the stage, and I actually hypnotize them in front of the audience. But what I do say, specifically, every show, do not video or record the induction, because it is true, if they record the induction, they can go home, watch it, or listen to it, and they can actually be hypnotized by my voice without me even being there. So
yeah.
So I'd say do not video or record it in any way whatsoever.
Yeah, absolutely. And I did ask you this off air before we started today's broadcast. I just want to ask you again for the benefit of the listeners. If somebody has been hypnotized, does the effect wear off? And if it does wear off, how long does it last?
Basically, if it's for hypnotherapy, it will last, if you wanted to, it will last a lifetime, like non-smoking, giving up alcohol, weight loss, etc. That's completely different because you want it to work.
Yeah.
But basically, in my...
This is the Cam Baker Show.
If Rod
Good
is
evening. Yes, I'm here. Good evening.
okay, I'd just like to say that I discovered Rod just recently, and Rod is a really great hypnotist. He's actually self-taught, but the thing that I've noticed is that Rod is actually, he's bringing a huge amount of laughter to his audiences. And one of the things I have to say about the hypnotists that I've seen myself, especially the Las Vegas hypnotists, is that it's a bit dry and it's a bit kind of surgical and medical in the way that they go about doing their stage shows. And Rod's show is very fluid and he involves the audience, and it's hilariously funny as well. And Rod has been featured on this clip featuring a DJ called Chris Sloth. And
Charlie Sloth.
Charlie Sloth, yeah.
Charlie Sloth.
And one of the most amazing things is that Rod has the ability to bring somebody under his, influence. How long would you? What's the shortest time you've taken to actually induce someone?
The best I've ever done is 2 seconds. That's the best ever.
2 seconds.
2 seconds.
And you can actually see in some of the TV shows and the videos that Rod's got online, you can actually see that these people are fully under Rod's control within seconds.
This is amazing. And
when I first started out in I think it was 1995, it used to take me 30 seconds, but year by year I whittled the seconds down just by saying a different word or a different movement. People actually thought, and still do, think I pinch people's necks and nerves to actually disabilitate them and drop them to the floor, but it's not. It's just all it is my words getting into their mind. And now, like I said, I average now, if I take more than 5 seconds, to me, I've failed.
Now, Rod, I used to be in the military, and it was one of our favourite nights on the camp when they would bring in a hypnotist, They would mix it with comedy. Yeah. And on one occasion, it actually went a bit too far because they had a couple of guys almost getting sexual with one another. Now, it was always said to us that some people are more susceptible to hypnotism than others.
Yeah,
and I have to ask you, what makes a person susceptible to having their brain hacked?
Well, what we're saying on stage is only 1 in 5 out of the volunteers are susceptible. It's just the way of law of averages with the human race. But if you're not going to be on stage, 99.9% of people can be hypnotized to a certain extent. The people I like are the most open-minded, like artists, musicians, the military, of course, graphic designers, people who use their imagination in their job and their life. They're very, very open-minded. But the people that are a nightmare to me, no disrespect to these people, but people who've, I know it hurts to say so, people have been abused in their lives or have been bullied, etc. They tend to go into their shell and they don't open up. So the people I show, it's a bit of a tongue-in-cheek joke, but I hypnotize them not to remember anything they've done in the show. And
I see.
There we go now. What I do is I actually put lipstick on the blokes, because I work a lot in Corfu in Greece. I actually put lipstick on them, but I make the lipstick invisible for the next 2 hours. So they go off into town to basically go on the pool and have a few drinks. And they're out in town with this bright red lipstick, but it's all over their faces, not on their lips. And even if they go into the toilets to look in the mirror, the lipstick's invisible, and they're still trying to be on the pool covered in lipstick for 2 hours.
It's absolutely amazing, isn't it? I think actually invisibility is one of the most amazing aspects to hypnotism that I've ever seen.
Well, Chris, I have to add, this is the one thing that startled me as well, because one of the famous tricks is having somebody stand in front of the participant and then another person stand behind them. They have maybe a clock in their hand or some object, and they ask the person sitting down, what is the other person holding? Now, by rights, There's a person in the way. You shouldn't be able to see that. But for them, they don't manifest that person anymore. They've been told not to. Basically, they're not there. Now, how the heck does that work?
Basically, it's your mind telling you that they do not exist, and that's exactly what happens. You do not see whatever the hypnotist. So I tell that person's mind to imagine or see. Their mind will not see that person. It wipes it out completely. It just takes it as read that that's the truth. It's like, let me explain what hypnosis is like. Imagine you've got your imagination and a guard dog, right? So if I say to you, look at the telly, that telly is a rabbit, and you'll go, Rod, come on, you're talking stupid now. So what I do is I hypnotize your guard dog asleep, right? So it's now going straight into your imagination. There's no argument in the way, so it accepts. When I say the telly looks like a rabbit, your imagination sees, well, there's no argument, it must be the truth. So it sees in its memory bank a rabbit, and it sees the telly as a rabbit. So that's how you see it.
Wow.
And this is a question I've always wanted to ask a hypnotist. Can you, you get, certain people that have a natural talent for, say, playing the piano. Like they'll hear a tune. They might not even read music, but they consider a piano. Within about 3 or 4 minutes, they've worked out the main melody of a tune just because they've got a musical ear. Can a hypnotist induce that kind of natural aptitude in a person that doesn't have it?
Yes, because in actual fact, I can't remember, I've got a horrific memory, but it was somebody like Bach or somebody like that who actually used hypnosis to help them perform music.
Oh, wow. You know what? I'd always been suspicious about it. I always thought there was something about Mozart.
Wow.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, I knew it was one of the famous ones. They actually used to hypnotize themselves. I used to work in a halfway house looking after children who had drug problems, etc. And one of the girls there was a musician. And I hypnotized her with her permission and said, when you wake up in 30 seconds' time, you're going to go to your room and compose the best piece of music you've ever done. And gone. She was straight away up to her room. And she just...
Now, I was looking at the chat room before the break, and I was starting to think, in line with what we've been talking about previously in the show, you'd be the best man to ask here, because we were talking about Hollywood, mind control. And as a hypnotist, when you watch the likes of the mainstream news or Hollywood blockbusters, do you see techniques that you recognise? Are they trying to almost hypnotise us?
Now then, I've got a few notes down here in front of me, so I was actually going to share with your
You see, I'm synced in with you, Rod. I'm locked in, man.
with your listeners, actually. It's about politics, in actual fact. Now then, if you ever ask a politician a question, do they ever say yes or no? Have you ever heard, if you ask a politician about the fiscal policy, would they ever go yes or no? They never do it, do they?
Absolutely not. They're incapable of one-word answers like that.
The reason is, right, now I'm going to give it away to your listeners. This is called the confusional technique, right? They're going to all be listening very, very carefully now. So if you ask a politician, what's the fiscal policy these days, and what's the answer? He'll go, waffle, 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 bring in big words you've never heard of. Your mind goes like absolute mush and pulp, listening, going, yes, yes, I don't know what he's saying. And he confuses you so much, and right at the end he'll go, we need to raise taxes. And you go, oh, that's the answer.
Oh, that's amazing, because even in the military, we had a phrase called bullshit baffles brains.
Yeah.
It'd be when people waffle on, Joe, and then at the end of it, you don't know what they said, but you've agreed anyway.
Yeah, it's a classic psyop technique. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and that's how politicians do it. Also, if you notice, every politician uses their hands. They wave their hands around in front of you. Notice that next time you watch them on telly. They never stand there dead still. They always wave their hands around very, very dramatically, waving their hands in the air whilst they do all this confusional technique on you. Just notice that next time, and it's all part of the confusional technique to make you totally baffled and then go, we need to raise taxes. And your mind goes, like you said, that's the answer, the bullshit one.
So is that part of something they call neuro-linguistic programming, Rob?
No. That's completely different. There's so much. NLP is about a way of life to make your life better, etc. It's invented by somebody called Richard Bandler, who I read a lot about. Hypnosis has a very, very small amount of NLP in it, but only about 10%, which I've looked into it, and it wasn't really for me. But some people are heavily into it. NLP uses a lot of words, confuses you, and then gives you the answer. But with hypnosis, you don't want to use confusion. You just want to relax them to get into their mind. Other ways of hypnotizing is the shock technique, which I absolutely hate. I'm giving all the secrets away now. If you look on YouTube, you'll see some people, I can hypnotize in 1 or 2 or 3 seconds, and they use a shock technique. The thing is, what they do is they walk up to you, you hold your hand out, and automatically you hold your hand out as well, and they'll bang, push or pull it really hard and shock you, and they'll hit your head down into hypnosis. The thing, I hate that, because first of all, it's a total stranger. You don't know if they've got any injuries to their spine, their legs, their arm, or anything. You're a total stranger you're doing this to, and I do not agree with it in any way at all. Totally about that.